Have you experienced those moments where like you hear your parents' voice coming out of your mouth and you're saying like the exact same thing that your parents said to you, and you said, I'm never going to say that, right? And you've read the books and you're trying, but you're still reacting in these ways. And you're like, how do I change this, right? And it's not about trying harder, but it's about actually understanding what is underneath all that. It's about understanding your nervous system. It's about understanding your wiring, but you can change it. And today we are going to equip you with the knowledge and the skills to be able to play that long game, to change the generational patterns in your family. So if you haven't already, take a moment before you listen to the podcast to rate, review, to comment. We love a good 5-star review. We'd love to hear from you how this is impacting your life and your family. And so we really appreciate any feedback you can give us. And get ready to sit back and enjoy hearing about how to break the generational patterns that you want to change.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey.
Hello, welcome to the Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
I'm Sarah.
And Sarah, I think all of us as parents hope to leave a better legacy, right? Like I think in our hearts, we want to change. We can look back at our childhood and go, I really like to do that differently. Or I hope our kids see the world different in this way, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes people might call those generational patterns, right? Like things that were passed on to our parents from their parents and so on. Yeah. And it's sometimes we're not maybe as aware of them as we'd like to be, but we do see them. We're like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing the same thing that my parents did that I said to myself, I would never do that thing. And like, how did I get trapped in this?
Right.
So it's really, I think it's at the core of every parent when they have kids. They're like, I want to do things a little better, And so today we want to talk about what it actually takes to break those generational patterns, if that's what you're wanting to do, right? We're going to talk about what keeps families stuck, what the brain is doing underneath, and what change looks like in ordinary moments, right? Because that's maybe where you're not looking for, but that's actually where the change starts to happen, okay? But let's hit upon, why is it so hard? Like I said, I think we start out going, I want to do this better, but then before we know, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the exact same thing. So how come it's so difficult?
Yeah. And I think I just want to take a short little time out to say it's not even about like bashing the other generations. It's like we all recognize they gave us amazing, wonderful things, and we're going to give our kids amazing, wonderful things. And then our kids will want to change some things that we do, just like we want to change some things our parents did. And right, I think each generation shows up and goes, okay, I want to tweak this. And so we're talking about like, okay, how do I do that? How do I tweak this thing? Because we've learned, we've grown, each generation is growing and learning,
with
right?
More information and more skills. Yeah.
And then to speak to your point of why is it so hard? Yeah. It's wired into us. It starts even before we're born, this way of showing up and the patterns in life.
Yeah.
And those things get programmed into our brain. This is how you do this. This is just like, this is how I walk. This is how I eat. It's not just those actual skills. Yeah. It is, how do I show up when someone's mad at me? How do I handle conflict? How do I handle sad moments? It's in every little area. Your little tiny brain is going, okay, no, that's what we do. Okay, that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into that, I want to do a quick plug. This episode should be dropping on April 13th. And tonight, we've got Payne, Bryson, author of No Drama Discipline, Parenting from the Inside Out, The Whole Brain Child, yada, yada, all these New York Times bestselling books, will be in Tulsa tonight. So if you're listening to this on Monday, April 13th, she'll be at Riverfield tonight. I believe the timing is going to be like 6 to 7:30, but you can look at Riverfield's information or on our social media to find out, because she's going to help you get information as well on how to break these generational patterns, how to do things differently with your kids.
Yeah, she's a brilliant speaker.
So I just want to put a plug there. If you can go, get there. She's never spoken in Oklahoma before, and we were able to talk her into coming to Riverfield and doing this, with partnering up with them. Very excited about it. Okay. So, but the reason why it's so hard, and I know I've wrestled with this myself, Sarah, is first of all, it does seem like a character flaw. It's like, what is wrong with me? I'm obviously not trying hard enough, or I'm not reading enough books or doing enough, because there's this dad I want to be, but there's this dad I continue to become when I'm reacting in moments, right? And you hear this kind of sadness, the shame, this disappointment in a lot of parents who are like, I wanted to be like this, but I keep doing this. And really, we want to dispel some of that. That isn't a character flaw, because patterns that live in the nervous system don't change just because we have good intentions. Just not how it works, right? Like the nervous system actually absorbed the environment that you grew up in. Okay, so it's not just like a memory that you can look back on, but it's actually an automatic physiological response that is wired in you under stress. And that's why I know Sarah looks at me sometimes like, why are you reacting that way, right? But to me, it's like, because that's how I grew up, right? But like a child pushes a button, says something. I mean, you guys, come on, if you're a parent, there's something that kid says, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't let them say that. Or you'll have this big reaction to it. Yeah. And that's because there's this old pattern that's been wired deeply into your nervous system. And so it's not about weakness. It's not about a flaw. It's just about neuroscience. It's just about understanding that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like your brain learned how to function in those moments.
Yeah.
And so it, just like everything else, it goes right into that same, this is how we do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about what generational patterns are, Sarah. Okay. So they're not just the easy ones. Like you can see those with abuse. You can see those with addiction, right? Those kind of things are easy to spot. But most patterns are just pretty ordinary and kind of invisible. Now, since we do this for a living, we can see them lots of times. Like we'll see them not only in our family, but in other families, right? That we're just observing. We'll be like, oh yeah, that's interesting that they did that way, just because we're like curious and we'll just notice these things, right? But like, it could be like a quick escalation to yelling. It could be avoiding hard conversations, using shame or guilt, even when you say you hate it and don't want it yourself.
That's a real easy common one.
And another big one is just emotionally shutting down or becoming over controlling out of fear, right? But these are not like conscious choices. Like you're not going like, I'm going to do this and like, bam, you do it. It's like, it's really just these habits that your nervous system has gotten into, and they're just reacting to these moments, okay? And so kids absorb how we regulate, how we react, and how we repair. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, in an opposite of that, we've also built a lot of really wonderful habits.
Yeah.
And we also give those to our kids.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
a
in
lot
the
of
same
healthier
way,
patterns. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things in life that you're doing, and you just go through life and you're not even conscious of it. And you're handing that beautiful thing off to your child. And they're also learning that same way. Maybe you're a great hostess. When people show up to your house, you're you're there and you're carrying and you're creating this delightful atmosphere and things. You might not even consciously break that down for your child, but your child is watching and learning, and then they grow up and they're able to repeat those same beautiful things. And so we do it here too, where when I make a mistake, I fill myself up with shame because that's how I do things. And so then when my child makes a mistake, I make sure they know to be full of shame. I give them that look. You know?
Yeah.
So it's just those things that we just go along through life, and we've learned them and we're repeating them.
Well, what I think is interesting too, a lot of people will talk about, man, at work, I'm different. I'm not like this at work. Well, because that generational pattern wasn't happening at work. It was happening.
A different atmosphere. It's a home.
Yeah. As a kid, you weren't growing up at work. So lots of you come to work. Now, hopefully by the time you're at a job, your brain is fully formed and you might have some similar reactions, but it's really a different atmosphere, So it's different. So it's kind of interesting how they'll be like, I've heard from some dads who would just prefer to stay at work because they feel like they're just a better human being there than they are at home.
They have an employee who messes up and they go to that employee.
They'll say that. I'm very patient. I think it's a learning process. Them a skill,
but then at home, it's...
Yeah, and they'll say that. I don't know why I can't do that with my own kid. Well, because it wasn't done to you as a kid, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's break down the brain just a little bit. We want to get too technical. We're going to talk about neuroscience. Let's talk about the brainstem. Okay, we're going to talk about these three basic parts, these basic stages of your brain. The brainstem, that's your fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain. Here, the brain learns through threat patterns. So it's all about the whole thing there that the brains do is just, how do I keep myself safe? Okay. The limbic system is more where the emotional center of your brain is, and it stores emotional memories there. Okay. Lots of times when I'm there, Sarah, I'm thinking, man, when I was a kid, we would never do it that way, and that's kind of like, when I was a kid, I was already doing this by this age. We'll have this kind of thought. The prefrontal cortex builds meaning around relationships, right? Like, we're all in this together. Okay, so of course it makes sense that you don't do it the same as me because you didn't grow up in my home. And it was like this understanding that we're building something different, okay? Yeah. And so we're emphasizing that because we want to show you that's why it's so important to get to that prefrontal cortex if we want to be able to break these generational patterns, okay? Because what happens is this kind of brain, how they're interacting with each other, it becomes just automatic pathways. Like, they just start firing before the thinking brain can even catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
There's just these triggers. Your child does something, looks a certain way, talks back, spills their milk, whatever it might be.
And it's just like,
your brain, because it's learned this thing, it does it automatically. And so you're there before you realize it. Yeah. It has stored that memory, and that, okay, if this happens, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And we use that in lots of really beneficial ways. But in this case, it's not serving us anymore. But it still thinks that's how to function.
Yeah. So think about those moments that are like that. What are things that you do that you get triggered about that your spouse doesn't? Literally think of it like a neural pathway that has been wired and wired and wired over repeated patterns. And that's why you default to that. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean you have to continue defaulting to that. You can create a new pathway. Okay.
I'm going to give an example. Sometimes this one makes sense to me. If there's been conflict and as a kid, you learn that it was just better to kind of hide away and shut down, right? Because you didn't want to get in trouble or something might have happened. So you just think, oh, there's conflict, I need to shut down. That's not going to be safe to engage it. It's going to get bigger. I'm going to get punished. So in that way, when I was a child, okay, here's the pattern. And my brain gets so good at that after years and years of doing that. But then when I'm older, and now I don't want to keep doing that pattern, but it's still the same thing. Conflict arises. I want to shut down. My brain shuts me down before it's not a conscious thought. Oh, what do I want to do right now? And so when I see my children and there's conflict there, that same all that loop just goes on.
When you're thinking, I'm even thinking like parents will talk about being a youngest kid and how they were bullied by an older kid. And then now when they watch their kids do it, they freak out if the bigger kid does something because
that same trigger happens.
Because they be like, I need to protect that. I can't let that happen, because you are reacting like you wish somebody would have done for you when you were a little kid, right? Yeah. But you didn't have the power to do it. But now you are the big person, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about 3 reasons patterns are just really difficult to break. Because if you've tried it, it's like it's a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It seems like it's very hard to change it, right? So like you might even be saying to yourself, I know better. I mean, I know, but why do I still react this way? Okay, well, first of all, number 1 is when we're flooded, we don't parent from our values. So you actually might have a vision and a concept of how you would like to respond to a situation, but you keep reacting because when you get flooded emotionally, your nervous system responds as a threat. Okay. So the thinking brain just goes offline under this type of stress. And then your older, faster survival wiring will just take over. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this isn't about being a hypocrite. It's about just basically being dependent on this physiological state that happens in that situation. Mm-hmm. And this happens to everyone, including very connection-based parents. Mm-hmm. Meaning us. So it happens to us too all the time. The daily, weekly, there's moments where we can spot that and be aware of it.
Yeah. It's just there. You have to realize if your nervous system is triggered, bam, all your goals and dreams are out the window and it's on autopilot. Yeah. And so you just have to go, okay, I flipped to autopilot. Mm-hmm. It's the wiring that's there and it's so strong. That path is dug deep and it's really hard to get out of that path. We're going to get there, though. Okay, so number 2, implicit memory, not explicit memory, implicit memory, which means kind of like the memory that's just stored in your body. It's the memories that formed, back before you had language. This stuff was getting laid in your brain. So that memory runs faster than conscious thought. So those stored emotional experiences from childhood, that they end up having this fast, body-based, largely outside awareness, where it's just going to quickly happen without you even thinking about it. Before you know it, you're caught up into it. And you're like, how did I get here? Okay. Yeah. Because the child's behavior mirrors something from your past, something that they're doing, whether you're not really aware of it, but it seems to be mimicking
or mirroring something that happened to you. And the nervous system reacts before the thinking brain can register. What I'm thinking of, Sarah, I'm thinking of that time when one time Abby was little, and there was this moment where she was upset about some kind of clothes that she forgot to bring to do this event. And like, you were upstairs trying to empathize with her. And I was just so sick of it. I was getting annoyed with it. So I remember coming up and saying something like, "Oh my gosh, Abby, like, it's not that big a deal. Like, get over it and just get down." I remember just doing it. Came downstairs. My mom was there. My mom says, "What was going on?" I go, "Well, Abby, something happened with her clothes." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you would do the same thing." And I was like, "What do you mean I do the same thing?" She's like, "Oh, you would freak out if your clothes got wet or you didn't have the right clothes." Like, "What would you say?" I'd say, "Get over it." Like, outside, like, and she almost word for word said what I had just said to her. And I had no idea that happened, right? I had no idea that my parents said that to me. And that's why those words came out of my mouth. I mean, we've got to be curious as parents. Like, why am I saying this? Like, you're in the same situation. You're not saying it. Why am I saying it? Because somebody said it to me. That's where my brain goes, this makes sense for this moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So implicit memory runs faster than your conscious thought. Number 3, chronic stress shrinks your window of tolerance. Okay. Speak to that, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I love thinking about this one. It just really helps me whenever we have to realize that the more stress we're under, which, I mean, hello world, we're under a lot of stress as parents, right? There's so much going on.
Yep.
And when we're in those moments, which right now is probably most of us, it is harder. So we just have to recognize we have this window of tolerance. So when you're in that window of tolerance, you can, things can come at you. You can kind of process and deal and cope and regulate. But when you increase stress, you can go into this much more, reactive state or shut down state because you're outside now of that window.
Yes. Okay. So after we're talking, so the chronic stress is going to shrink that. You just think about when you have more pressure, when there's more stimulation, when you have less support, like, come on, you're on your own and the other person's not there and it's just you and all the kids, like, you're going to be more reactive. Okay. Sustained stress over time narrows your range of calm responses. So, like, I'm thinking of, Sarah, days when I was really anxious about work, or I had a long to-do list I had to get done. I was definitely I wasn't living out my values in those moments. It was all about just expediency and efficiency, right? So even well-resourced parents have less margin than they think. And it's not weakness. It's just the load is genuinely heavy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like it. I'm thinking of, like, if I'm lifting a big weight, I'm just going to be less patient, And I've got to realize that's what that is telling me is I'm not patient because I have too much on my shoulders. Okay. So these 3 things that we just mentioned will start kind of stacking on each other. Okay. So let's talk about what actually keeps families stuck. Okay. So let's go through real quick what doesn't work. Most parents have already tried some of these. So listen closely. I bet you will find yourself in some of these. And I know we will too. So number 1, fixing the kid's behavior before stabilizing your own nervous system. So basically, like, you trying to fix the kid before you're taking care of your own dysregulated self.
Yep. Same like the airplane thing, put on the mask first, on yourself first. You need the oxygen. You got to make sure you're regulated in a good space.
Yeah. So you might be trying, I know you've been trying, okay, I'm going to try this new script that I was taught, that Kyle and Sarah taught me. I'm going to try this new set of consequences I heard about on Instagram, or this new strategy. But I got to tell you, no matter how well-intentioned, when you're dysregulated, no strategy is going to work consistently. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2, expecting transformation faster than the brain rewires. What do we mean by that? Well, like, take like 3 good weeks, stress hits, and then old patterns fire, feels like failure. It's normal. It's not failure. Okay. That's normal. Okay. We see this all the time when we're coaching parents, is they'll be like, "Oh my God, things are great." Things are going, like, I'll do my first parent coaching, set, which if you are saying, "Hey, we need some help," reach out to me at kyle@artofthraisinghumans.com and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. But I'll talk to them, Sarah, in those first 1 or 2 meetings, and they'll come back like, "This is awesome. Like, things are working out great." And I know, I'm glad things are working out great, but I know some of that stuff is just this newness. It's like things are changing. But once we get back, like once stress hits, we're going to default back to that old generational pattern, and then we're going to beat ourselves up and feel like we failed.
Terrible. Yeah. It's like a success, and then no, I thought I was better.
And you know that this is like when you're trying to eat better, you're trying to like, I'm going to exercise, and like you like go for like every gym knows you're going to get that gym membership, and typically a month or two in, you're going to get busy. And you're going to stop going, and then you're going to be like, oh, I stink. I failed again.
We want to just build that new wiring so fast and switch tracks, like a little railroad, just get on the other track, but it doesn't work that way.
For some reason, we don't seem to be wired that way. Yeah. Okay. So number 3 is shame. So when shame comes on, that's not going to help you get unstuck, right? So shame is stuff like, oh, I'm just like my parents, or God, I'm just like my dad. As opposed to the growth would be, my nervous system is learning something new. I just need to give it some time, right? So once you understand that what you're actually trying to accomplish, you don't need to give in to shame.
Yeah, that shame will derail you. It's rough.
Yeah, it will make it less motivational to try. Number 4 is stopping old patterns without building new ones. Okay,
I love this one.
Okay, we'll speak more about it.
Because so many times it's like we go, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this, but we don't recognize that it took 18 years to build that other wiring that you're so efficient at. And so we can't just stop it. You have to have something to move into, and you've got to build the thing you're moving into, And so I love just thinking, okay, I got to build that. I got to build that. And so you need something to go towards, not just stop that.
I just got to throw in a sports metaphor. It's so true. It's kind of like a person who's playing basketball and their shot techniques are bad. Or a quarterback's like, it'd be weird if he's like, oh, this coach showed me a new way to do it, and now I'm good at it. It's like, no, you have to practice it. And even you got to have some patience that in the middle of crunch time, when it's stressful in the game, you're probably going to shoot the way you used to. And you got to, okay, I did it for most of the game, but in that moment, okay. So I still got work to do, right? So it's always going to be there, but that's really, really hard to change, especially when you were a little kid, you learned how to shoot a basketball a certain way. It's difficult to change it.
Any habit you're going to build, I stay up too late. Don't stay up too late. That wouldn't work. You would say, okay, I'm going to go to bed at this time. I'm going to read. I'm going to shut down my screen, or I'm going to listen to music, or whatever it might be. I think we know in other areas of life, we've got to build the thing we're moving into, and that's going to take a little bit. So you just got to think, if I'm going to stop being so reactive to my child, I've got to build the thing I'm moving into.
Yes, like you're saying. So instead of saying, I'm going to stop yelling, I'm going to start building emotional safety, right? I'm going to start being a safe person.
What does that look like? What are my little steps? And I'm going to have to practice that to get really good and have that be my default instead.
And maybe you already know this, but this might be a new insight to you. You cannot shame yourself into becoming the parent you want to be. It's just not going to work. So you can all day long tell yourself how you're not the parent you wish you were, but it's not going to help you change. Okay. Connection before correction isn't soft. It's neurological. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're doing that as well. Like you're always connecting with the kid in these moments to be able to change these patterns. And it's not being soft. It's not being easy. It's actually really, really hard. And it's going to rewire your brain and then help wire your kid's brain to where they don't have these generational patterns inside their brain. Okay. So let's talk about how to actually break generational patterns so you can do that, okay? So here's 4 practices. So get ready for 4 steps that Sara and I intentionally do our best to do to break these as well and to create new legacies for our kids. And I know that's your heart if you're listening to this, okay? So these 4 practices, they build simultaneously, not sequentially. So just think that in mind. So they're all kind of working together at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, number 1 is regulate first before you respond, okay? And that's important because a calm brain creates new pathways. A flooded brain reinforces old ones, okay? You've got to buy yourself a few seconds before you actually respond. And something that could be really helpful, especially for me, I can be a loud person, is lower your voice, slow down your movements, one breath, take one big breath to your stomach, and then your neurological signals will calm down. Okay. They'll start to go, it's no longer an emergency.
Yeah.
So this isn't some kind of like calming trick. This is really you're relaxing your nervous system. And I'm telling you, it will be a game changer for you.
I like to tell myself this is not an emergency. We heard that one a long time ago from Becky Bailey. And that one just has really been meaningful to me. It helps me move into the take a breath, relax, calm down. Because you do kind of feel like everything's an emergency. I mean, like in a logical way, it's not, but you're responding as if it were.
Yeah.
And so just to remind myself, oh, it's okay. I can take a few minutes to get to where I need to be.
Well, Sarah, I'll always remember this moment where I was talking to Abby in her room. She was little. Brennan was probably maybe 2, and probably 3 or 4. He comes in the room and we were having kind of a tense conversation, and Brennan pops in, and immediately I could tell, like, I was really annoyed that he came in the room, and like Abby was telling him to do something, like take something out of her room. And he just like froze there. You could tell he was frozen by the intensity of the moment. And in my brain, I'm like, dude, get out. I'm just thinking this, and as I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, what is your problem? Why are you not listening to what we're saying? And I stopped, and I did exactly what we're asking parents to do. I stopped. I actually smiled. I took a deep breath. And then I was like, that was weird. And Brennan goes, that was weird. And Abby was like, it was weird. You were just like staring at him. And then you started smiling. And I'm like, I know. For a minute there, I thought, you need to get out of this room. But now I'm kind of curious. How come you're in the room? What are you doing here? And then he came over. I gave him a hug. And I asked him if it felt different. He said it did. I felt like at first you didn't like me. But when you smiled and then you talked to me in this calmer way, I felt like you loved me again. And I thought he articulated it so well that that's kind of what I was thinking in my mind, right? Is he went from being the villain to just being a kid who's just coming in the room. So that's where moving from step 1 to step 2 is kind of what I was able to do. I got curious about these triggers instead of critical. Like you start asking yourself, what about this specific moment is activating me? Like, what is it about this? I want to just slow it down and like just be curious for a moment. And then typically you'll find there's some common themes. Maybe you feel disrespected. You feel out of control. You feel some fear. You feel like there's some old wounds. I think for mine, it was like, he's not listening to me. I want him to listen to me and do what I'm saying, right? And the fact that he wasn't moving right when I said it was like somehow he's defying me or something, And naming it actually can weaken the automatic loop. It kind of takes the power away from it and gives the power back to you. And it creates this gap that you need between the stimulus and the response. So what you're doing is you're trying to slow this moment down so then you can actually see it happening in real time. Oh, and it feels so empowering when you're able to see it and then change it and then respond the way you want it to. It just feels beautiful.
Yeah. And as you practice this, I'd say like it can be kind of clunky, but as you get more and more, you're like, okay, you kind of learn that. You learn your favorite ways to regulate, your favorite ways to kind of turn towards yourself for a second, go, what's going on in me? Because it's curious about the kids, but it's curious about what's here, what's going on in me? Why is this moment taking the meaning it's taking in my mind?
Okay, number 3, I want to repair quickly and make it visible. So you might say something like, hey, I didn't handle that well. I didn't handle that the way I wanted to. And I'm really sorry for that. The child learns so many deep things. And I'm telling you this because I've had to say this a lot. So this is something I've had to say a lot. I think I'm actually really good at it because I feel like I got to do it so many times. But the child learns that mistakes are repairable and relationships are resilient. They can survive these kind of conflicts. Okay. It's the opposite of what most generational patterns kind of taught us, that like these conflicts are scary and we should avoid them and we shouldn't talk about these things or we shouldn't take responsibility. Shouldn't say what you did was wrong because then the kid will see that you're not perfect. And then, all this kind of stuff. Right. But an imperfect repair still rewrites the lesson in real time. So it's not that you got to say everything perfect, but the point is like you're really helping rewire, reframe, relearn that situation in real time. And if you never do it, you miss that opportunity.
Yeah, it's really powerful for your brain if you're trying to build that alternate wiring that you want to be your default. If you just jump into it right then, do these things right then, and then you're building that. Because then when that trigger comes, your brain goes, oh yeah, I have a couple options here. And eventually the one you want gets stronger and stronger.
And just remember this, repair is not about damage control. It's actually the most powerful teaching tool a parent has. And so I've really seen that play out where the repair has helped me grow, helped me understand myself, but also help my kids learn the skills to where we can do that better next time. Right. And number 4 is build new family patterns. Like, this is super fun. Build new family patterns, small and repeatable. Okay. So like the brain wires through repetition, not intensity. So it actually isn't through these intense moments that we need to focus on, but it's about doing the little things. Okay. So like calm, limit setting, asking a question instead of giving a lecture, staying in the room during a hard emotion rather than just shutting down or exiting, saying I was wrong when you were actually wrong. I mean, these are huge. I know I hear songs, I see movies about these things because they're like so impactful. I mean, think how much that would impact you if there's things that you were hurting about that your parents did when you were growing up. If they would just say, hey, I was really wrong and how I handled that. I mean, just think that would have been 20, 30, 40 years ago, but it still would mean something to you today, right? And repeat it. If you repeat these things over months, the child experiences you as safe and they feel like they can trust you and that we can handle this as a family.
Mm-hmm. Pick a couple and just go, okay, I'm going to really focus on these couple things, and layer it in there and get really good at it and build more and build more.
Yeah. So maybe pick a couple patterns that you want to see
like a couple of things that you just mentioned, like I want to be quick to say I was wrong, or I want to make sure that when I give a directive, I'm doing it in this way.
Yeah. I'm not yelling. I'm being calm about it. That's great. A child who feels safe with their parent will come to them when it matters most. And I know that's everybody's heart listening to this. You want your kid throughout their entire life because they're going to go through some hard things that you hope they never have to go through, but they're going to experience because that's life. And you want them to know you're a safe person to come back and do that because they know you have shown them that you can change, that these patterns don't have to continue on. And so often, Sarah, I think is what the kids don't see this change happen. And then they'll just tell me, I'm just tired of trying. I just feel like my mom or dad don't want these patterns. They say they want the patterns to change, but they're not willing to do anything to change them. Yeah. Okay. And even like I've heard kids too, like talk about where they can see it. They can see with grandma and grandpa, they can see with aunts and uncles, like, oh my gosh, like you can see they've been doing this for a long time. And then they're like, I don't think my parents know how to change that,
It feels very fixed.
Yeah. And so then they're like, I don't want to be like that, but my parents don't seem to know how to fix it, or change it. Okay. So just in closing, we want to encourage you that you are not behind, you are not failing. And I mean, I really believe this, that the most courageous work Sarah and I have ever done has been in our parenting, because changing these things, I mean, it is hard work because you can imagine how hardwired our bodies and brains are. And to do that work is just very, very challenging, but it is so rewarding. So the goal here is that you want home to be where repair is normal. It's not that we never mess up at home, we do, but repair is normal. Emotions are survivable, okay? Relationship is greater and bigger and more powerful than the hard moments. Like we can survive these hard things. And like Sarah said, we're in a stressful time. Like the world is a stressful place. And you want your home to be a place where kids know that we can overcome hard things, okay? And we can change things that we don't like in our family. It's not about one transformational day. That would be cool. To just plan a transformational day, but we're going to transform that. But it's actually doing a bunch of ordinary moments and choosing differently in those ordinary moments.
It's the long game.
Yeah. So we believe in you and your power. So maybe, the power to change these generational patterns, but I would encourage you to reflect on them. Like talk with your spouse. What are some patterns that maybe you guys have never spoken about? Maybe you have, and you have felt defeated that you couldn't change them, but you are the one getting to build the family and co-create it with your kids that you actually want to bring to the world, and if we all do that work, we can make this world a much more beautiful, safe, caring place. Okay. So we want to encourage you to do the courageous work. And we're so glad that you're joining us on our journey as well, doing this. And please take a moment, if this is helpful to you, to share this with a friend, where they've talked about how they want to do it differently than their parents. I hope you share with them and let them know that this podcast will give them the tools to do that. So thank you so much for taking time to listen to us.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.